Hello artists, so today I'm going to be teaching you a little bit about how to weave on a loom with yarn. So I'm going to show you how to set up your loom first and then how to start weaving on it. Let's get started. So here I have in front of me these are cardstock pieces, and they've been cut so that there's notches on either side. This is called our loom, and what we're going to be making today is we're going to be making it'll look something like this at the end, depending upon how many colors you have, and then you'll kind of squish the pieces of yarn together, and we can kind of see right here this pieces of white yarn. We're gonna that's called our warp. So the first thing we're going to do is start with our loom. What we're going to need here is this really thin white thread that we're going to wrap around our loom. This is called our warp. So what I'm going to do is take my tape here, and I'm going to lay my end piece, so my end is right here and it's going towards one of the notches on the end, and then I'm going to go ahead and tape that down so it's secure in place. Then I just need to flip over my loom here, and I'm just going to go back and forth on it. So I have one notch at the end here, so I'm going to go on the other side, and I'm going to wrap it around underneath and go back up. I'm going to do this all the way across. All the way across. Oh, got a little stuck. There we go. I'm going to go all the way across. Under and over. Under and over. I want to make sure that it's not super loose, that it is fairly tight. Not so tight that it's starting to bend my loom, but I want to make sure it's fairly taut. Alright, then I would flip it over, and I'm going to need another piece of tape to secure it on the back. And I'm going to go ahead and take my scissors and cut off this extra I don't need. Alright, now to flip it over. When I go to start, so I have my warp, this is called my warp, and now I'm going to start with my weft. My weft here, all I've done is I've just taken any color of yarn I want and I've cut it down, and then I'm going to go ahead and show you how a good way to thread this plastic needle that you're going to need. A good way to do it is to take one end and kind of fold it in half towards the end, and then pinch it with your fingers so that I have just a little bit left. And then I'm just going to kind of squeeze it right on top of my plastic needle. That way it goes through the eye of the needle. And then I would pull it through. What I like to do to help keep this in place, you can choose to do this or not, is you can choose to tie this end around a little bit. Like you can choose to tie it around the main thread. I do that so that it stays in place, but you do not have to. That way it just stays in place like that. Alright, so what I'm going to do is this yarn that I'm using right now is called my weft. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over and under with my weft. So I'm going to start by going under the first string, the first part of my warp, and then go over the next, under, over, might have to pause halfway through to get my needle through a little bit, under, over, under, and then there's my last one. When I get that done, I'm going to pull it all the way through towards the end. I want to leave a tail though at the end right here so that I can secure it to this last part of this string on my warp. Alright, so now I'm going to do the opposite, going back through the other way. I'm going to, this time, instead of going over, which is what I did this last one, I went over. Now I'm going to go under, so I need to go opposite. So under, over, under, over, under, over. Pull it through just a little bit here, under, over, and then I'll end so that it's opposite. Then I need to pull it through to the other end, not so that it's so tight that my warp like smushes together, but so that it just lays kind of flat, right? And then I would smush the two wefts together. I would smush these two pieces of yarn together so that it becomes one continuous piece. Now I'm going to show you what to do with this tail here. With my tail, so that it doesn't come apart when I finish this, what I need to do is I need to kind of loop it back through. I need to loop it back through like I were kind of like tying a knot in it. I'm just going to loop it back through going that way again so that I can tie it or make a little knot at the end here just around this last strand so that it doesn't go anywhere. And then I might need to go back through and like kind of get these evened out a little bit more. Then I can go through and smush it. All right, I'm gonna go show you one more time. This time, remember, I need to do opposite, right? So I need to make sure I stopped with the over on this last one. I went over the last one, so I need to go under this first one now. Under, over, making sure that I'm going opposite of what I did in the last row. Again, I would pull it all the way through. I want to make sure when I'm pulling, I'm not pulling too tight because otherwise, look, it'll get all squished together, and I don't want that. It won't be very straight at the end. So I want to make sure I leave it kind of loose, but not so loose that it's like coming out everywhere. And then I would smush it together. All right, one that I've already started here, I've already started one and gotten pretty far on it. The more and more pieces of yarn that I have, I can change colors at any point. But then the more and more pieces I get, the more I can squish these pieces together so that I can no longer see my warp anymore. I can't see my warp in the middle. I can only see my weft. So then when I'm getting close to the end of a piece of yarn, what I want to do is I want to make sure I leave a long tail. I don't have quite enough to go back through the other way again. So I'm going to leave my long tail, and I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to wrap it underneath this last one again. So I stopped with going over, so I'm going to go under like I was starting the next row, but I'm going to pull it all the way through so I have that loop. Then I would go on the opposite side of the loop, and I'm just going to wrap it back in so that I am able to kind of tie it off so it's secure. All right, and then I would go ahead with my scissors and clip it. Then I would be ready to start a new piece of yarn. When I start my piece of yarn, I want to start on the place I ended. So if I ended right here, I need to start my new one over here. I can't start it over here. I want to make sure that I start in the same place I ended. Happy creating!